We have spoken a lot about Gaza over the years, but I want to revisit this issue today because of the mess it is in and the trouble it is causing for Israel. It was reported last week that the Israeli Defence Force destroyed yet another underground terror tunnel that was dug from Gaza into Israel. This was the 15th one destroyed in the last 12 months, and it penetrated 200 metres into Israel. Just think about it. Had those 15 tunnels not been discovered and destroyed in the past year, it is probable that they would have been used by Hamas terrorists to infiltrate into Israel and kill Israelis or take them hostage. And this is in addition to the protests that have been going on and raging at the border over the last 6 months, where Hamas fighters try to break through the border fence, sometimes succeeding, or send balloons with firebombs attached over to Israel so that they can start bushfires in this summer season, which is also succeeding. Of course, Israel responds as it should, and every Friday a few Palestinians, usually young men or teenagers, are unfortunately now killed after the non-lethal methods have failed, and the IDF has to resort to live ammunition in order to prevent the border being breached. We all know what is going on. Hamas wants to provoke trouble in the hope that eventually the world media will pick up on the fact that, quote, defenceless Palestinian civilians are being brutally murdered by the evil Israelis. Hamas tells the world that the poor people of Gaza are highly enraged by the oppressive Israeli blockade and are protesting to ease their suffering. They say that their people are lacking in basic supplies and are struggling to even survive. What they conveniently forget to mention is that Egypt also has imposed a blockade on Gaza for the same reasons Israel has, and that is because they want to stop the flow of weapons and explosives into the Strip. Hamas also avoids saying that Israel allows about 800 truckloads of supplies into Gaza every day. And Israel knows that when building materials and concrete were previously allowed in, they weren't used to build houses, schools and hospitals, but rather state-of-the-art tunnels complete with electrical wiring. The latest issue has been the supply of fuel into Gaza, which has dwindled to a trickle, thereby limiting the energy supply for Gazans. Why? Because in 2017, the Palestinian Authority ended all fuel payments to Israel. And as a result, Israel stopped delivering fuel, as anyone would if they weren't getting paid. So at the core of the issue are two fundamental problems for Israel. One, Hamas is a bona fide terror organisation committed to the destruction of Israel and the murder of all its Jews. And two, the Palestinian Authority is doing everything it possibly can to sabotage any discussion of peace in the region. Both Israel and Hamas do not want another war. Hamas knows it will get pounded again by Israel, although it does hope that a lot of dead Gazans will turn world opinion against Israel. However, even with this potential benefit, a war could potentially lead to a lot of societal unrest against Hamas. Israel doesn't particularly want a war because it is expensive and will cost the lives of some Israeli soldiers. And then what would be the aim of such a war? Israel doesn't want to take over control of Gaza, and the other option of removing Hamas from government could lead to even more chaos and a potential humanitarian crisis that they would get the blame for. So Israel and Hamas have tried to reach some sort of truce as mediated by Egypt. But something very interesting happened last week. The Qataris have repeatedly offered to donate $60 million to pay the PA's Gazan electricity bill. But get this, PA terrorist-in-chief Mahmoud Abbas has repeatedly rejected Qatar's offer. So Israel and Qatar have now reached an agreement of their own where Qatar began shipping fuel to Gaza but paid for it in a roundabout way. Under the deal, Qatar gave the UN $60 million, which the UN in turn paid to Israeli fuel companies to provide diesel fuel to Hamas-controlled Gaza. As it happens, Defence Minister Lieberman recently stopped this supply until all the border violence ends, as it should. But there is a significant consequence to this, as it puts paid to the myth that the Palestinians in Judea and Samaria and those of Gaza are one people politically and economically and have to be treated as such in any resolution of the conflict. Clearly, there are two independent entities here. In fact, Caroline Glick says that the Gazans are culturally and economically aligned with Egypt, whereas the West Bankers are culturally and economically aligned with Jordan. Both the Palestinian Authority and Hamas are troublemakers who hate Israel's existence with a vengeance. But it's time the world started looking at them through different lenses. This may be the only way that some of this mess can even begin to get sorted out. This is Alan Freedman from Nothing Left for the Australian Jewish Association.